I hated playing this solo challenge, so much so that I did something that I've never done before. I need to tell you the whole story, and once it's done and you understand where I'm coming from, then I need to make you a promise. It all started with water types and YouTube comments. 4 years ago, when I started uploading Pokemon content on this channel, I played the game like a 7-year-old. Just pick a move that sounds like it would be good against the enemy and see what happens. All of you left comments informing me about the intricacies of the game, like type matchups, and I really did learn a lot. One of these things was that water types are fantastic. It's a well-balanced type with only 2 weaknesses and 4 resistances. Wolfie VGC ranked it 3rd overall, but he was torn on if it should be number 2, choosing to rank it 3rd only because in Scarlet Violet's Scald was made exclusive to Volcanion. I won't pretend to understand competitive Pokemon, but I'm not playing Generation 5 solo challenges yet, so Scald is irrelevant to me. Following this logic, the water type is probably the 2nd best in the game. That's what I thought when I sat down to record Seal in Pokemon Yellow years ago. I expected it to do quite well because of its typing, but I was shocked by the champion's Magneton and failed to find a way to consistently beat him. I tried everything and nothing worked. Feeling defeated, I walked away from the solo challenge for a week to clear my head. I did come back though, completing my 2nd playthrough, resigning myself to the fact that I wasn't going to be perfectly consistent. But that felt like defeat for me, and it lives inside me still. It left a scar, so much so that now I describe the feelings that come from significantly underperforming expectations as the Seal effect. After this video, I might need a new term. I'm also not going to be using a water type Pokemon today. Instead, I'll be using the type that Wolfie VGC ranked 15th overall. Today, I attempt to beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Nose Pass. Rules are in the description. For base stats, Nose Pass has 30 HP and 30 speed, 45 attack and 45 special attack, 135 defense and 90 special defense. These are quite frankly some really awful stats. Notably, its base stat total is 375, which is only 10 less than Onix. I don't just think that's a curious coincidence, I think it's intentional. It's Roxanne's ace, and she is the first gym leader who is also a rock type specialist. This is very similar to Brock in Generation 1. It seems like the developers had a certain base stat range in mind that they wanted to give the first gym leader's ace. This made me very curious about Cranidos, and yes, it is in the same relative range with a base stat total of 350. Although I think here the developers went with a slightly lower base stat total because its attack stat is 125, whereas both Nose Pass and Onix have 45 attack. These two Pokemon are not known for the amount of damage they deal. For this playthrough, I decided to go with a lonely nature, improving its attack stat and lowering its defense stat. I have so much defense and the rock type is quite good against physical types, so I don't think I'm going to need extra points there. Nose Pass has the middle of the road medium fast growth rate, which should be fine. Now, I should spend a little bit of time talking about Sturdy. This ability does not function the way it does in later generations. Starting in Generation 5, it stops all one-hit KO moves from knocking the Pokemon out, leaving you on 1 hit point. But in Generation 3, they worded things a little bit more specifically. Sturdy blocks 1-hit KO moves, so Guillotine, Fissure, Horn Drill, things like that. If, for example, Nose Pass gets hit by a super effective water move which does enough damage to knock it out, it is still going to go down in this game and in Generation 4. I knew if I didn't talk about it, someone was going to comment about it, and now we will know who skipped the intro, so let them know in the comments. I technically had the choice between 2 abilities, the other one being Magnet Pull, but this is essentially useless in a solo challenge. It has effects on mechanics like fleeing and switching, but they aren't relevant today. Kind of like Sturdy, because I don't think I'm ever going to get hit by a 1-hit KO move, so Nose Pass actually has access to 2 useless abilities. That is a great place to start. Luckily, it gets Tackle at the beginning of the game, which can at least deal damage. It's not the best early game move. Beyond that, at level 7, it gets Harden. This can be very useful for the late game. Against Steven Stone, it's fantastic. Rock Throw at level 13, Block at 16, Thunder Wave, curiously, at level 22. I think this is a reference to the fact that Nose Pass is actually a compass, and its nose points the direction. Anyways, I guess it makes sense that it learns some electrical moves. Rock Slide at level 28, which is fantastic. Sandstorm at level 31, this does not increase special defense in Generation 3. That is added starting in Generation 4. Rest at level 37, Zap Cannon at 43 for another electrical move. This one isn't going to be useful, it only has 50% accuracy. And finally, Lock On at level 46, just in case you want to hit with Zap Cannon. Its TM and HM learn set is incredibly limited. Toxic, Hidden Power, Sunny Day, Taunt, Protect, Frustration, Thunderbolt, Thunder Thunder, Earthquake, Return, Double Team, Shockwave, Sandstorm, Rock Tomb, Torment. I almost did that on one breath. Facade, Secret Power, Rest, Attract, Strength, and Rock Smash. Hopefully you can tell it doesn't get access to much. Luckily though, it gets the perfect coverage through the trifecta of Return, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. With one move slot left open, I have options. I can use something like Substitute, Harden, Rest, or maybe Hidden Power, which in this case I have assigned the Flying type, specifically because I have hated the Ludicolo. It's caused lots of problems against Wallace, and I wanted to make sure I had super effective damage against it. I can use Earthquake and Rock Slide for pretty much everything else, but I just wanted to make sure that I had it covered. Plus, Flying type moves help against fighting types as well as other grass types. In this challenge, I think Nosepass is really going to struggle with its speed. That is, despite the fact that in Emerald version, the AI Pokemon are not particularly fast. Coming up in September, I'm going to do a deep dive on the speed mechanics in this game so we can really get good insight into speed lowering natures, speed raising natures, and speed neutral natures. But that's not for this video. Instead, once I reach Rustboro City, I go into the trainer school and talk to the teacher who gives me the Quick Claw. I think this item is going to get a lot of use in this playthrough. Just so we understand its mechanics, it gives the holder a 20% chance of going first in its priority bracket. So it still doesn't have the ability to outspeed something like Quick Attack or Mach Punch. But with Nosepass's typing and stats, I'm not too worried about those moves. I'm fighting the trainers in the early game, and I'm going to do extra training on wild Pokemon north of Rustboro City. This gives me the opportunity to catch an Abra, which can speed up my mid-game because Teleport is a fantastic field move in Emerald. There is so much backtracking in this game. I have some run-ins with the Psychic type, but I failed to catch it, so maybe I'm going to get unlucky here and beat Roxanne first. However, before I go into her gym and save and just blindly battle her, I wanted to test out my damage ranges with Rock Throw against Rock-type Pokemon. The Rock-type does not resist itself, but the Ground-type does resist Rock-type moves, so I have the same type attack bonus on Rock Throw now, but I'm still going to be doing not very effective damage. This Hiker is a great place to test out my damage because he has a level 8 Geodude, and I am doing so little. This test convinced me that Nosepass is not going to be able to beat Roxanne at level 13. It probably is also not going to be able to defeat her at level 15. I might need something like 18 or 20. While doing my training, I encountered another Abra, and this time I am lucky enough to catch it. This makes small things like healing in Rustboro City a little bit faster because it can use Teleport to get there. At level 17, I try fighting other rock types and still I am doing pathetic damage. This is not looking good. So I'm going to train to 20 to try and be a little bit overly safe and then battle Roxanne. I do this extended grinding in Rust Turf Tunnel, battling Whismur for their HP EVs. This helps for Roxanne, and while it would be nice to be gaining attack EVs right now, since Nosepass's base attack is kind of trash, I need all the help I can get. Extra HP also is going to mean that I survive more hits later into the game. With 23 minutes and 21 seconds on the clock, I level up to 20, and now it's time to see how Roxanne goes. I want everyone to look at Roxanne's sprite. She has this kind of sassy finger where she's like, "Nuh-uh, you're not gonna beat me." And yeah, nuh-uh, Nosepass is not going to beat her team. I set up Harden initially to hopefully give myself the longest possible time in this fight to deal damage to her Pokemon, but she has a lot of potions and the Geodude have Defense Curl, so I'm slowly doing less and less damage. And even though I brought an Oranberry into this fight, it's consumed early on. I don't even make it by the second Geodude onto her Nosepass. Instead of resetting here, I am going to instead black out, saving the small amount of experience that I earned from her first Geodude. This can be an optimal way to play against someone like Brock or Roxanne early into the game if you can defeat at least one of their Pokemon. So what's the answer? I'm going to train up to a higher level in Rust Turf Tunnel, gaining HP EVs as I go. This takes Nosepass all the way from 50 up to 99 before I try Roxanne again. By this point, my Nosepass has learned Thunder Wave, and it has utility against Roxanne. It can't affect her Geodudes because they're the ground type, but Nosepass is a mono rock Pokemon, so I can paralyze it. But in order to pull that off, I have to make it by the two Geodudes, and at level 23, Nosepass can't do that. Okay, back to grinding all the way to level 25. Now I have 144 HP EVs, and I come back to face Roxanne again. Small error for this fight, my stats are not actually showing correctly. I am instead showing Nosepass's base stats. I filmed it this way, and I don't have a replay file of the run, so I can't re-record it for all of you. The only reason I bring this up is because you can see that I have -3 speed, and it's saying that I have 30 speed, which is not accurate. I'm actually slower than the first Geodude right now, so I have less than 11 speed. The AI in Generation 3 uses Rock Tomb as a speed control move until their Pokemon is faster than yours. This is sometimes an advantage because then their Pokemon will use Tackle, like for instance the Nose Pass will stop using Rock Tomb and instead choose Tackle, which is obviously a worse choice, provided that it doesn't see that Rock Tomb has the range to KO your current Pokemon. With the Geodude, this is a little bit of a different story, because once they lower my speed, they still have access to the move Rock Throw, which can deal decent damage. So instead of attacking me with Tackle, they're going to choose Rock Tomb to manipulate my speed, and then Rock Throw or Defense Curl. And in this case, because it gets set up to +6 defense, it takes me so long to knock out the first Geodude. I only have 4 uses of Rock Throw left for the remainder of the battle. So unless my Nose Pass is going to win with 7 hit points and using Tackle, this is a loss. And yeah, I'm not going to win. I can't use potions in battle like Roxanne can. When I sat down to do this challenge, I didn't think Nose Pass would be that bad. Like, it's not going to take 4 times damage from any Pokemon because it's a mono type. Its stats are pretty bad, but it gets hardened for Steven, so I thought that I would probably need to be level 90 to beat the game, but it's going to be possible. I did think that Roxanne was going to be a little bit easier. By this point, battling her for the 4th time, I had realized my path to victory. I really want to get critical hits. Just 1 or 2 well-timed crits are going to do amazingly for Nose Pass, and I get one right away on her second Geodude. It sets up Defense Curl, then she uses a potion. I continue using Rock Throw. This time, it's not able to set up enough, and I do finish it off using some tackles, so I make it to the Nose Pass for the first time, and it's actually a really good position for my Nose Pass. I have green health, and I also still have my Oran Berry. Turn 1, I paralyze it with Thunder Wave, and then I begin my setup with Harden. This is the change I made in this battle to make the Geodudes just a little bit easier. Setting up against them gave ample opportunity to have my speed lowered, and also for them to set up Defense Curl. Now, paralyzing the Nose Pass has one side effect, which is not great. The Nose Pass is going to use some Rock Tombs against me, but since I'm setting up with Harden, it's not doing that much damage, and after my Oran Berry, I have a decent amount of health. Plus, Rock Throw is doing a lot to her Nose Pass because it takes neutral damage and it hasn't had time to set up with Harden. Because of this, even though she has an Oran Berry, I am still able to win using Tackle. Finally, Roxanne is defeated. It took me roughly 41 minutes of time. I get an attack boost now from the badge, so 10% more attack, and I also get the TM for Rock Tomb, which is more insult to injury. It's not useful because Rock Throw is more accurate, and I also have a way to manipulate speed using Thunder Wave. And I think that's the superior move because Paralysis can prevent the enemy from attacking, and it also has 100% accuracy. After saving Mr. Briney's Pico, I face the rival in Rustboro City. Rock Throw one-hits the Wingull, and his Trico isn't that scary. It also likes to use Quick Attack in this battle. I don't know why. His AI is really bad. I wanted to show this fight just so you can get a sense for the fact that I am battling optional trainers, and I'm going to continue doing that throughout the run to gain levels quickly. But I'm not going to battle everyone because I don't think that's going to be required. In Emerald version, you get a total of 15 rare candies throughout the entire playthrough. Next, I have to catch HM users. I'm going to pick up a Tailo, a Zigzagoon, and a Meryl. In this case, some people ask me why don't I make my Pokeballs 100% accurate to reduce some RNG from creeping into my tier list results, and I don't do that because some Pokemon have advantages in catching HM users. In this case, Nose Pass can paralyze them with Thunder Wave, increasing the odds that I catch the Pokemon. I don't like to change RNG in the game that is related to the Pokemon itself. I only make changes slowly and carefully, and the catching mechanic is not going to be something that I update. Okay, so on Dewford Island, I pick up the Silk Scarf to boost the power of normal type moves, but the Quick Claw is still more useful. I hand the letter to Steven Stone, and then instead of fighting Brawly, I'm going to head to Slateport City. I don't think it makes sense to go up against a fighting type specialist now. On the beach, I pick up an Ether as well as the Soft Sand, which will be useful once I get access to Earthquake. I'm also going to do a lot of training here because there is a high density of trainers, plus once you beat everyone in the little beach house, you get access to Soda Pop, which can be useful to prevent some trips back to the Pokemon Center throughout the rest of the run. The Aqua Grunts inside of the museum aren't problematic because I'm powerful enough to just one-shot their Pokemon. Nosepass is very over-leveled by this point, level 27, but I'm still a little bit worried about going into the Trick House. Last Sally's Oddish survives my attack and paralyzes me, which is annoying, but she's not the difficult trainer in here. Instead, it's Lass Robin. Early in the year when I played the game with Relicanth as well as Wailord, she was very scary with her Shroomish as well as Meryl, but for this battle I have reached level 28, so now I have Rock Slide and her team isn't problematic. Okay, after Roxanne, Nosepass is actually doing quite well. What could possibly go wrong? Well, nothing in the immediate future. I beat some more trainers, grab a PP up, and then I go up against the rival. He has a Slugma. I miss here. It's annoying, but it doesn't matter because the fire type is terrible. Wingull is next. I am obviously super effective against it, one-shotting, and then Grovyle comes in. You're probably thinking now, okay, this is what Scott was foreshadowing. The Grovyle is going to be awful. The answer is no. Rock Slide just one-shots. It's easy. Let's move on to Mauville City, where I grab the HM for Rock Smash. Sometimes this is useful against Watson's Steel-type Magneton. Ideally though, I don't have to use it because you can only delete it once you reach Lily Cove City, and it's pretty useless beyond Watson. At level 31, I have the chance to learn Sandstorm. I considered teaching this, and in the end I put it in the place of Harden, because setting up defense isn't really good until I arrive at Steven. I'll just use a heart scale in the move reminder once I get there. Okay, so at level 32, I am ready for what is technically the second gym leader of the run. First turn, Voltorb moves first, uses Spark, paralyzes Nosepass, and that's my Cherry Berry. So now, things are not looking particularly good against the remainder of his team. I set up Sandstorm on the Electrike because chip damage is just nice when I can get it. From there I use Rock Slide to knock it out and move on to the Magneton. Okay, so I'm gonna get paralyzed. I'm just hoping that Rock Slide's gonna do a decent amount, and it really isn't. Remember, Watson has 2 Super Potions, so the fact that he can heal Magneton, on top of the fact that I'm paralyzed and then later confused, really makes this battle difficult. As a mono rock type, I can get hit by Shockwave, and everything spirals out of control, and I don't even make it to the Manectric. Okay, so I didn't want to teach it, but it looks like Rock Smash is going to be the best choice here. I put it in the place of Sandstorm, and then I go back into the battle to try again. By the time I reach the Magneton, I have been a little bit luckier retaining my Cherry Berry. That's when I noticed something. My speed is so low that I don't outspeed the Steel type, meaning it won't prioritize Thunder Wave nearly as much. In some cases this would be an advantage, but not today, not when you're playing with a Nosepass. Things are starting to get awful. The Magneton just prioritizes attacking over and over again, and after a Super Potion, it again knocks me out and I don't make it to the Manectric. Okay, so I'm gonna do some extra training in the gym to get to level 33 over a damage rounding threshold. The Magneton just barely survived in the previous battle, so if I get a little bit luckier with Rock Smash lowering defense, which I do, I am then able to take it out, but I only have 19 hit points left over for the Manectric. Maybe I should be using an Oran Berry here to heal some health since he's not using a lot of Thunder Wave. This battle looks like it gets close, but still at the last minute he uses a Super Potion and then finishes Nosepass with Quick Attack. When I originally mentioned this move, I was like, it's not relevant. It is actually relevant. The Manectric can knock me out with it when I have low health. I kept trying this fight because I know if Rock Smash comes through for me, lowering Magneton's defense at the right moment, I will be able to win. I briefly considered using Thunder Wave against it to make it less consistent, but then it prioritizes its own Thunder Waves to get back the speed, and that's not a good idea because then the Manectric will be more consistent against me. In the end, what it comes down to is Rock Smash, and oh, by the way, sometimes it just uses Thunder Wave and paralyzes me anyway, but then it stops using it after paralyzing me once and I knock it out. Okay, for the Manectric, I am going to use Thunder Wave to paralyze it, hopefully just cutting down the number of times it attacks me. I know this messes up the speed interaction and it is going to paralyze Nosepass, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Rock Slide does a little bit more than half to it on its first attack. It heals with a Citrus Berry, Shockwave takes me to half health, I attack again, taking it down to orange health, and then Watson uses his Super Potion. Paralysis prevents my next attack, Shockwave takes me to orange health, it attacks again, Watson then uses a second Super Potion after bringing me to red health, and at that point, I knew that this is not going to go well. I'm probably going to have to level up much more, unless I get something like a clutch critical hit here, and that's exactly what happens. Rock Slide comes through, critting, knocking the Manectric out. Alright, I didn't deserve to win that. I should have had to level up to like 35 or maybe something like 38, but for now I'm proceeding past Watson and I have the TM for Shockwave, which Nosepass can learn. Although for now I'm just not going to. Heading north, I continue battling trainers for as much experience as possible, and I also pick up these Rost Berries. I have been burnt in the past by the Numel right before Maxi on Mount Chimney, and I don't want that to happen today. Plus the trainer that's right beside these berry patches has 2 fire types and I'm gonna battle him, so preparing just makes sense. With him out of the way, I grab the TM for Secret Power and I teach this to Nosepass in the place of Tackle. I'm fighting all the trainers that have good experience yields along the way, so Ninja Boy Lao is a must battle. In a future battle, Nosepass levels up to 37, and here is where I can learn Rest. I would really like to unlearn Rock Smash right now, but I can't, so instead I'll teach it in the place of Thunder Wave. The ability to heal might have some utility against Flannery or maybe Norman. Before Meteor Falls, there are some important items to pick up: these Person Berries, the best berry in the entire game, then a Carbos, as well as a protein behind this smashable rock. If you play competitive Pokemon, you'll be well well aware that you should optimize EVs, but in solo challenges that doesn't really make sense, especially if you're timing yourself for real time. So instead, I'm going to use both of these vitamins on Nosepass because slightly more attack and slightly more speed will help it overall. I've only had one case in the past where I needed to be level 100 and optimizing my EVs would have been ideal. That was using Delibird. It really ran into problems against Steven and eventually had to win using Double Team. I didn't think that Nosepass would come anywhere close to being that bad. And believe me, we're going to reflect on how that prediction aged by the end of this video. For now, we need to face Maxi. Things actually get really annoying here. I get hit by Intimidate right away, then I miss a bunch of rock slides because this move is inaccurate. I have my accuracy lowered by Sand Attack, and the Mighty Enna chips away at me using Bite while Maxi uses a Super Potion. Next he sends in Camerupt. It has two moves that are kind of good against Nosepass. Number 1 is Magnitude, and number 2 is Ember. I decide to use Rest because I've taken a decent amount of damage, so I wanted to play safe. I also have a Chesto Berry so that I wake up right away. And on that turn, I get burned. I really didn't want to waste time using Rest again. I was scared of Magnitude rolling something like Magnitude 9 or 10, and then fainting to the Camerupt while I'm asleep. So instead I prioritize Rock Slide because it also has the chance to flinch slower opponents. This doesn't work for me with my accuracy lowered and getting tunnel vision, not using Rest, I end up fainting. Still though, the Camerupt is really bad. In the next fight I don't have problems against it, and all he has after that is a Zubat, which is an easy one-shot. With Maxi dispatched, I can grab the Meteorite, forget for a brief moment that I have Abra, then I remember I use Teleport and head back to Fall Arbor Town to grab the TM for return. Right now its base power is 88, so better than Secret Power, but I don't think it's going to be useful against Flannery, who's next. Nosepass has a type advantage here both offensively and defensively, and I think this is a good time to reflect on how it stacks up against all of the major battles throughout the run. In the early game, things are rough. We have Roxanne, Brawly, and then Watson. But it gets better from there. Flannery, I resist and I'm super effective against. I resist Norman's attacks, I have super effective damage against Winona, and I'm neutral against Tate and Liza. But from that point, things really go downhill. Nosepass is weak to Juan, it's weak to 2 of Sydney's Pokemon, it has a neutral matchup against Phoebe, which should be fine, but it's weak to Glacia, also strong against her. I'm not going to be great against Drake, but it shouldn't be a problem, and then Wallace is maybe the scariest trainer in the game. When I played the game with Regirock earlier in the year, it definitely struggled with that battle, and this is the reason I didn't go with a minus speed nature for Nosepass. I know that Nosepass is going to be a higher level than Regirock was facing Wallace. As a result, Wallace's Pokemon aren't super fast, and I think there might be a chance of Nosepass outspeeding. Anyways, that's getting really ahead of ourselves. Of course, Flannery is simple, Nosepass has no problems, and with that I earn myself the 3rd badge. On my way backtracking, I do something that I normally don't do. After picking up a rare candy in the desert, I head back past Mauville City to the Trick House. I'm doing this so I can complete 2 additional puzzles, because the 3rd prize is the Hard Stone. Also, this factors really well into my overworld routing, because I need to go back to the beach anyway. On my way, I can pick up some hidden power TMs for some type coverage, and then I have to sail back to Dewford Island to face Brawly. Here I don't need hidden power flying because his Pokemon are just pathetic at this point. I am so overleveled. With him defeated, it's now time for the gym leaders to return to their proper order. Let's face Norman. I'm holding the Hard Stone, I'm faster than the Spinda. Rock Slide does not one-hit, but it does flinch. Despite him using a Hyper Potion, I can just use Rock Smash, and then use Rock Slide to knock out his lead. Next is Slacking, and I clicked a little bit too fast using Rock Slide. This is very scary because his ace has counter, and Rock Slide gets a critical hit, but I inflict a flinch, and as a result, it's not able to counter my attack. Then on the turn it's loafing around, I can use Rock Slide. I'm gonna alternate with Shockwave on turns that it could attack with counter, and by doing that, I'm able to finish off his most powerful Pokemon. From here, the Vigoroth and the Linoon are pretty pathetic. They only have good physical moves, and the Vigoroth isn't great when using Feint Attack. That's my 5th badge, and honestly, Nosepass is feeling kinda good now. Its time is over 1 hour and 20 minutes, but I was never expecting this thing to perform particularly well. My estimate for the playthrough was around 3 hours of total time. After grabbing a rare candy in Petalburg City, you can see how useful Teleport is. My last center that I visited was Mauville City, so I can go all the way back there now, skipping so much backtracking. I also go into New Mauville to fix the generator so that I can get Thunderbolt from Watson, but before I do that, I go south, picking up 1 more rare candy and then teleport back to the city. I grab the TM and then I head west to talk to this guy to get strength, but I can again use Teleport to come back to Mauville. This is such a fantastic field move, it saves so much time. Heading northeast, I run into the rival just outside of Fort Tree City. This battle might seem like it would be a problem. The Pelipper is a water type and the Grovyle is a grass type, but no, Rock Slide knocks out his ace, and for the Pelipper I have Shockwave. Arriving in Fort Tree City, I'm going to continue to emphasize the usefulness of teleport, I go into the center setting my waypoint there, and then after getting the Devon scope I can just teleport back to the city. I deposit my HM users and head into the 6th gym to face Winona. Well, first I have to face some flying type specialists. Camper Flint and his tag team trainer can sometimes be problematic, but with a nose pass it should be fine. This time the Pelipper does not use protect, it's always nice when that happens. Winona is the next gym leader and Nosepass stacks up very well against her team. I have super effective damage against all of her Pokemon in the form of Rock Slide, with the exception of Skarmory. For it, I'm going to have to use Shockwave. My special attack stat is lagging my attack stat for a variety of reasons. There are less special attack EVs available throughout playthroughs, and I also have a badge boost in my attack, but not with my special attack. I'm not worried about having to use Shockwave against the Skarmory. What I'm more worried for is the Altaria. The Tropius isn't a problem, it's a special attacker, but it's kind of useless. It does have Solar Beam, but it's not going to be able to use this because Rock Slide's doing enough damage. Pelipper goes down to a single Shockwave, and that leads to Altaria, which can do decent damage with Earthquake. The thing I was most worried for here was it would set up turn 1 with Dragon Dance and then hit me for massive damage. It doesn't do that much, and then I miss. It sets up Dragon Dance next, and I hit with Rock Slide. Luckily, Nosepass has enough damage and her ace faints. From there, only Skarmory is left. It could have done a lot of damage with Steel Wing, but instead it chose Sand Attack, so Shockwave gets the knockout. Alright, on the next route of the game, I'm going to show you some items that I'm picking up. Here are rare candy, and then another rare candy, followed by Lepa berries. I'm drawing your attention to this because it will be relevant later on. That said, for now, the only thing I want you to remember is the fact that I didn't plant new Lepa berries. In my solo challenges, I have never found a scenario where I need to grow more PP restoring items. Mount Pyre is next, I grab a rare candy, and then I head into Lily Cove City where I can finally delete Rock Smash. I return to Fall Arbor Town and use the move reminder to teach Harden in the empty slot. This seems a little bit weird right now, but I need to prepare for Tate and Liza's Clay Doll. Having a move to raise my defense plus rest to heal seemed like the best strategy. Magma Hideout Maxi is next. Note here that I'm skipping Substitute. Maybe it would be good to have it at this point in the game, but I wanted to keep my current set for Tate and Liza, so I'm just going to have to make the best of this situation. He helps me out, boosting Nosepass's attack with Swagger countered by Personberry, and then I knock the Mightyena out. Camerupt should have taken 2 turns, but he used a healing item and it just barely survives. In the end, it doesn't matter, and the Crobat is also irrelevant. Aqua Admin Matt is next, and his Mightyena has no damage dealing moves, which I always find hilarious. Plus, the Golbat is just kind of bad against Nosepass, even though it moves first. With way too much water available to me, I surf over to Shoal Cave, picking up all of the items required to make the Shell Bell, plus an extra rare candy. Although in my modern routing, I'm coming in here every single playthrough, I think it's worth the time investment. But what I normally skip because it takes so long is completing the Shell Bell, but I'd rather be safe than sorry with Nosepass. And you can see that behavior manifest in a different way here, where I'm trying to get this rare candy and I save in front of this one random trainer. It's really good I did that, because she has a Manectric, it uses Thunder, paralyzing Nosepass, it hits twice, taking me down to red health, and my Rock Slide doesn't knock it out. After a Hyper Potion, I was hoping I would roll better damage, but I don't, and Nosepass faints to a 3rd Thunder. Okay, so that was a rough battle, but maybe she got lucky. I try again. This time, the Manectric once again hits with 2 Thunders, paralyzing Nosepass with the 2nd one. I knock it out, but the Linoon has the strangest moveset. Surf and Thief. That's it, by the way. Surf does decent damage since it's super effective, bringing Nosepass to 23 hit points. Okay, Paralysis doesn't activate, but will Rock Slide hit? The answer is yes, but it doesn't do enough damage. I think I'm gonna lose to Cool Trainer Athena for the 2nd time. That has never happened before. Linoon goes for Surf, and it doesn't do enough. Nosepass comes through with one final Rock Slide, and I win. I really wanted this rare candy. Believe me, I think it's gonna be worth it. The typical place I use them in these challenges is right before Tate and Liza to make the double battle a little bit easier on my solo Pokemon. But before that, I want to gain a little bit more experience. I can do this along the way to Pacific Log Town, and here I'm going to pick up a 2nd TM for return, just in case I need the moveset flexibility later on. I'm also going to go into the Pokemon Center and then surf over here to fight this guy who has 5 Gyarados. Shockwave makes them easy to knock out, and they give good experience yields. Plus, I can also use Abra, my favorite HM user, to teleport back to Pacific Log Town, so that then I can pick up the rare candy, which is on the northern part of the rapids. I get a little bit more experience, taking Nosepass up to level 54 before I enter Tate and Liza's gym. I want to see if it's possible to defeat them without rare candies, because I would like to save them for the late game if it's possible. If it's not, I'll just use them here. That's my standard play, so let's see how the 7th gym battle goes. Tayden lies a lead with a Claydol and a Xatu. Now, the issue here is that the Claydol loves to use Earthquake, and Nosepass is weak to ground-type moves. My strategy was fairly simple. I was hoping that Harden would give me a way to counter the damage from Earthquake, eventually use Rest, and then slowly defeat their Pokemon. There are some issues with this. Earthquake is doing a lot of damage to Nosepass on each turn, and the Xatu is setting up Calm Mind the entire time I set up my defenses. So when it attacks with Psychic, it will do massive damage because my special defense is lagging way behind my physical defense. Nosepass is holding a Chesto Berry so that when I use Rest I will wake up right away, and this does help, but setting up so much defensively also comes with another disadvantage, which is the fact that the enemy can crit your Pokemon. This happens with Earthquake, taking Nosepass down to red health. Rock Slide then misses the Claydol. It hits the Xatu, but it only does half, and because Nosepass has red health left over, the Xatu targets me with Psychic, and that's that. This was an unconvincing result, so I have 13 rare candies. I'm going to use them now to boost Nosepass up from level 54 all the way to 67. One level shy of a damage rounding threshold, which just irks me a little bit. By the way, I need to make some damage rounding threshold merch at some point. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested in that. I do have to warn you first though, a shirt like this might be disastrously dangerous to your dating life, unless you're specifically trying to select for a partner that will go this in depth with you into Pokemon all the time. Okay, so at level 67, things are much better. Although the Xatu uses Confusion, so Nosepass hits itself a couple times, gets brought to orange health, I figured I could go for one more Harden, but no, this is the time that Claydol gets a critical hit with Earthquake. In my third attempt, once again Confusion is a problem, leading to a reset, but then in my fourth attempt, it's not, and I'm able to get decently set up. However, I didn't want to continue chancing things because the Xatu is setting up, so I decided to use Rock Slide to knock it out. This takes 2 turns, then Soul Rock comes out, and I use Rest to heal my health. Here's another problem for Nosepass. The Soul Rock knows Solar Beam, and it's coming in second because they know that it's super effective. Interestingly enough, they're choosing Psychic more often though. I was hoping that I could just dodge Solar Beam altogether, but eventually they use it and it does a lot of damage. So while I did make it by the Xatu, I am left feeling quite hopeless after this loss. I tried again, and this fight goes differently, in the sense that it takes longer than all of the previous battles have, although it's not going to end up in a successful outcome as you might anticipate. All throughout 2024, I have been learning the power of Substitute in Generation 3. It is by far the best move in these games. The reason that is because they have no idea when you have a Substitute in place, so the AI will just spam things like Scary Face. That's more of an interaction from Fire Red, but one thing that I could do here with Substitute is block the Xatu's Confuse Ray. Also, sometimes this is not well understood, the fact that your Substitute is using your defensive stats, so as I set up with Harden using Nosepass, my Substitute will become more tough. So I do make it to the Lunatone in this fight, but it's still not enough. I can't get by it with Rock Slide, and eventually I lose, so I had to consider an alternative option. I'm going to go back to the department store and crush the rival because his team really isn't that good. On the roof, I can then use this move tutor to teach Nosepass Substitute, but I had to decide which move to replace. Shockwave can't hit the Claydol, so I guess I have to keep Rock Slide. This is not really a good situation, and without Shockwave, I'll have no way to bypass accuracy checks later on against a trainer like Sydney, who really likes to spam moves like Double Team. Before the battle, I grind a little bit more up to 68, so I'm over a damage rounding threshold. Substitute can survive Earthquake once I have +2 defense with Harden. The problem now is that I'm wasting too much time with my setup. Substitute, Harden, and Rest are all burning many turns, giving Xatu time to power up with Calm Mind and knock my Nosepass out with Psychic. I tried 2 more times and it wasn't working out, so then I decided to switch up my strategy just a little bit. If I use the Shell Bell, then I can gain back a little bit of health every time I deal damage. I can also prioritize dealing damage to the Xatu with Rock Slide on turn 1. This puts it in range for a Hyper Potion, so it's not going to use an attacking move. By doing this, I can set up with Harden on the next turn while they heal it. Then I can go back to attacking, taking it down to low health, hopefully. Also, I did get confused here because I didn't have time to set up Substitute because I'm not at a high enough defense stat. Luckily for me, I snap out of Confusion right away, and I can go back to my strategy of taking the Xatu down to low health, using up their Hyper Potions so they don't have them for later Pokemon, and hopefully eventually knocking the Xatu out. But in this case, instead of healing, they attack, and as a result, the Nosepass faints. I do like this strategy though. I think it is by far the best option I have available to me. Plus, if I'm attacking more often, there is more upside because I could get a critical hit knocking the Xatu out in a single turn. And that is exactly what happens. seconds. Now, I got lucky here, and I really want everyone to remember that. Nosepass is level 68 right now, and I've used 13 of 15 available rare candies. There is also a significant portion of the late game still remaining in the playthrough. One thing to note is that the medium fast growth rate starts leveling up faster than the medium slow growth rate at around level 68, so right where I am now. I figured because of this, I can do late game training and level up to like 80 or so to beat the entire league and then Steven, because Harden is going to carry me through that fight, right? That's definitely what's going to happen. Now, beating Tate and Liza is still a complete slog. It takes forever. I have to use so much rest to stay alive against the Soul Rock and the Clay Doll. Eventually, though, I'm able to attack, and Rock Slide does deal damage to both targets. This is advantageous because at least I'm knocking them both out at the same time. Eventually, I move on to the Lunatone, and I am going to finish it, so we are going to win this time. It took forever, but I do think in retrospect I made a critical mistake here. I should have trained to like level maybe 65 before using rare candies, and then rare candied up well into the 70s to win this battle. Nosepass ends up having a victory here not because it had the moves or the strategy it needed to overcome them, but just because it got a critical hit against the Xatu, allowing it to proceed with the playthrough at a level that is probably lower than it should have. And even to do that, I have to go all the way to struggle, depleting all of my moves' power points before knocking the Clay Doll out. The clock is now at 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 18 seconds. This is going to be relevant data for later on. The battle against Maxie and Tabitha is very straightforward with Substitute. Rockslide hits both of their Pokemon, and Steven's Metang also sometimes pulls its weight. It uses Psychic against their Poison types and Metal Claw against their Dark types. Archie is the main battle in the plot line, but here I am level 69, so really over leveled, and that allows me to take a quick victory over him. Rayquaza comes in, saves the day. Unfortunately, it's not going to be able to save this playthrough, and then I head into Juan's gym to face some ice puzzles. Look at this raw skill that you're seeing on display. 4 times game speed and not a single mistake. I am undoubtedly one of the best gamers ever. Okay, now let's take on Juan. Going into this fight, note that I have taught Earthquake in the place of Harden. Rock and ground type moves pair really well together, and I didn't want to get rid of either Substitute or Rest, at least at this point. Now here's a funny interaction. The Love Disc has 94 speed and Nosepass has 93, so yeah, Juan's first Pokemon is faster than mine. This almost never happens. I have said before, the enemy Pokemon in Emerald version are quite slow. Yeah, the Love Disc is actually faster. Anyway, it doesn't matter because I can set up my Substitute and then one-shot it using Rock Slide. Next is Celio. Rock Slide is super effective, knocking it out in one turn, and then Crawdaunt comes in. It does survive, use Crab Hammer, breaking my Substitute before I knock it out. That leaves me exposed for the Kingdra, and it looks like Rock Slide is doing under half. However, in this case it prioritizes Water Pulse, an attacking move, instead of setting up with Double Team, which I think is key, because Rock Slide's accuracy is already not great, but I roll better damage with my second hit and his ace faints. That leaves only the Whiscash. Earthquake does more than half, it wastes its turn with a Rain Dance, and that's that. Juan is defeated on my first attempt. He's definitely the worst gym leader in all of Hoenn. Before proceeding with the playthrough, I'm going to backtrack to this little area where you can use the Acrobike to jump around and eventually pick up 1 rare candy. Also up this waterfall, I pick up 1 more, so that is the final one in the playthrough. Next I go up against Wally in Victory Road. His team is honestly kind of pathetic. Even with a Nosepass, I don't have problems. I'm almost level 73 over a damage rounding threshold, so I once again battle a wild Pokemon just to level up, and now I'm ready for the Elite Four. And just before we roll the intro, I want to say, this is where the suffering truly begins. Sydney is first. I set up with Substitute so that the Mightyena can't use something like Sand Attack against me, and then I can use Rock Slide. However, the crunches from the Mightyena are breaking my Substitute with decent regularity. Also, Rock Slide takes it down to a sliver of health and then uses a full restore. I thought this meant it was going to take a lot longer to knock out, but luckily I get a critical hit. Beyond that, Cacturn comes in, I 2-shot with Rock Slide, I 3-shot the Crawdaunt using Rock Slide, and then the Shiftry that's next starts to set up Double Team, which is one of the most annoying things when you're using Rock Slide. I wish I had something like Shockwave here, but I don't. Either way, eventually I get another critical hit, knocking the second grass type out. Last is Absol. I do almost half to it, bringing it to a sliver of health with my second Rock Slide. But it's not able to break my substitute, and while Rock Slide has run out of PP, I can use Earthquake to finish his Ace off. Okay, so no suffering there. That was an easy first battle in the Elite Four. And Phoebe is exactly the same. Substitute is so fantastic here because the Dusclops can't use Curse on me, and from there, the second Dusclops doesn't have enough attack to break my defenses, and then the Bayonets as well as the Sableye are just not very defensive. So while I do have to two-shot all of them, since Nosepass's attacking stat is such trash, I don't think I've mentioned that enough in this video. Its attack stat is awful. It's so frustrating having to two-shot things when you are level 73. Right now, I am 23 levels higher than the opponent's Pokemon, and my same type attack bonus move, which is the best rock type move in the game, is still not able to one-shot. That's the only suffering that I experienced during this battle. Luckily I don't lose, and I'm able to move on to Glacia. Okay, so what was I talking about before the league? Because Nosepass is honestly doing pretty well. I have a type advantage here, so much so that my terrible move, Rock Slide with an awful attack stat, is able to knock out her most defensive Pokemon, the Walrein. Because of that, I was fairly sure I was going to win, but then I noticed that the Glalie has 100 speed and I have 99 speed, meaning that it moves first with Ice Beam and can deal chip damage before I knock it out. This is why I kept Rest on my set. I can just heal whenever I want, like against this Celio, which is pretty incompetent. Then I set up Substitute and Rock Slide 1 hits, moving on to the final Glalie, which is faster, but with my defenses in place, I can take one hit and knock it out with Rock Slide. I'm victorious over Glacia on my first attempt. Drake is a bit of a different story. I went into this battle with my moveset unchanged, Rock Slide and Earthquake. These two moves do not pair up well against his Flygon, so I make it by the Shelgon. The Kingdra is actually a little bit scary because it's going to take more than 2 hits to knock out. However, I bait out a full restore and then get a critical hit. When I was a kid, I thought that it was more likely that you would get critical hits after the opponent uses a healing item, and I was always a little bit worried using my own healing items in battle because I thought the opponent was going to deal more damage to me. Anyway, with the Kingdra defeated, I move on to the Flygon, and like I said, I just don't have good moves against it. Rock Slide is doing so little, and Earthquake is doing enough to Nosepass that I knew I needed a different strategy. I can teach Return because I have 2 of these TMs in the place of Rock Slide, which I can relearn with the move reminder should I need it. And then with the Silk Scarf, I'll have roughly equivalent damage to what Rock Slide was doing anyway to neutral targets. The problem here is that I don't get the crit on the Kingdra this time. With it surviving my attacks, it's able to go for Smokescreen, lowering my accuracy, and then Surf, bringing me down to orange health. Even if I one-hit the Flygon, I would probably still lose against the Salamence and the Altaria, which follow, because they're both faster than Nosepass. In the third battle against Drake, let's quickly summarize his speed stats. Shelgon is 64, and then his final 4 Pokemon are quite fast. Altaria 107, Kingdra 111, Flygon 126, and Salamence 132. Right now with 102 speed, I could level up to outspeed the Altaria and maybe eventually the Kingdra, but the Flygon and the Salamence seem quite far out of my reach, at least at this point. Maybe I need like level 85, 90, 95 to go first against them. This is where I started wondering if maybe Nosepass needed a speed raising nature. But if I increased my speed stat, then my attack stat would be even lower, and that would make pretty much the entire playthrough more difficult. Once again, I fail against the Flygon, and I tried this battle one more time, but it is still not working out, so eventually I decided to take a blackout and do more training. Okay, so the suffering has begun. I looked at the clock and it's around 2 hours and 40 minutes. I was thinking at this point that I can still squeeze in under the 3-hour mark with Nosepass if I just train up a little bit, get lucky against Drake, and then defeat Wallace and Steven. I don't think just sweeping the league is going to be enough, so I'm going to battle some extra trainers. That said, along the way, I wanted to go and pick up as many PP restoring items as possible because I'm starting to realize that I'm getting a little bit low on those if I'm going to have to do multiple league attempts and use moves like Rock Slide and Earthquake because they already have limited PP reserves. I grind up to level 76 and then I head back into the league. Sydney and Phoebe are very easy, and then Glacia gives me a reset. Now this is kind of intentional. It would have been nice to defeat her, but notice I haven't restored the PP of any of my moves. This is specifically so I'm not wasting elixirs, ethers, and lepaberries because I haven't been planting more, so there's a finite available number of these for me. I'm just going to continue defeating the league until I'm confident that I can beat Drake. Then I can use one of these items and save. Sometimes I'm not even able to make it to Glacia because the shift tree just sets up with double team and I black out here. Still, it's a small amount of experience. I defeated 3 of his other Pokemon. Interestingly enough, because of pressure, it is possible to lose to Phoebe because my PP gets drained and then I can't knock out her Pokemon. This doesn't happen just once. It happens over and over and over again. And now that I'm limiting the use of PP restoring items, I'm starting to wonder if I'm going to make it back to Glacia anytime soon. I decided to level up a little bit more in Victory Road to 83 before coming back to the league. Still though, it is possible to lose to Sydney. If I don't set up Substitute, then the Crawdaunt can knock me out. Remember, all the defeats here are blackouts, so I'm saving the experience from each of the fights. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a little bit painful because I do need to eventually make it back to Drake. At this level, I thought that I was going to be able to defeat Phoebe, but then I run out of PP and I decided to try to go for Struggle against her final 2 Pokemon. That said, while I do make it to the last resort move, I am not able to defeat her because I don't have enough health remaining. Okay, obviously my hope of beating the game under 3 hours is no longer possible. That means in its first playthrough, Nosepass is going to be one of the worst performing Pokemon that I have done so far. I wonder if this is how Emerald's going to feel when I start doing first stage Pokemon, like for example something like maybe Nincada. Although I have a hypothesis that maybe it will be faster than its final evolution, Shedinja. Ninjask will be the fastest of the 3. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It gets Swords Dance. It's a pretty good move, and while Roxanne's awful, at least it has a decent late game. I'm going to start the league again at level 84 because I'm now going to move first against both the Altaria and the Kingdra. But before that, I backtrack to pick up the White Herb just so that I can counter out Mightyena's Intimidate. The next battle against Phoebe is so close, so I didn't restore my PP after Sydney. Instead, I am just barely able to squeeze through at this level, knocking out her final Bayonet with my last use of Rock Slide. Okay, now it is time to use a PP restoring item and defeat Glacia. At this level she's much easier, but I noticed when recording this voiceover that I had missed the fact that the previous time against the Walrein I got a critical hit. That was what allowed me to one-shot it with Rock Slide. Still, there's other upside for me because I could inflict a flinch, which is what happens here. Beyond that, I sweep her team and make it back to Drake. 3 hours and 10 minutes on the clock, so is a sub 3 hour and 30 minute time possible? I think so from here. I'm level 85. There's only 15 more to go if I really want to level up more. And now that I'm faster than 2 of his key Pokemon, I think that Nosepass is just going to do much better. I'm trying Rock Slide against the Flygon so that I can hopefully have super effective damage against the Altaria and the Salamence. It surprisingly gets a 3 hit, but that leaves me on red health and Kingdra comes in next. I don't have enough to knock it out in a single hit, so Surf finishes Nosepass. Alright, I'll keep using Return and see how that goes. My held item was a mistake, but even with it, I'm surprised at how well this battle goes. I 2-shot the Kingdra, move on to the Flygon, it breaks my Substitute, and I take it under half health. Then Earthquake hits, bringing me under half, and I finish the ground type. Okay, so Altaria's next, and I can re-establish my Substitute here because its moves are not very good against rock type Pokemon. It likes to set up with Dragon Dance, buying me time to attack, doing more than half, and then after it hits with Dragon Breath, my Substitute survives and I knock it out. Okay, this is a good situation. I have made it to the Salamence with my Substitute intact. Now the Dragon type is going to move first. It hits with Dragon Claw, which is special in Generation 3. It breaks my Substitute, and then my Return does less than half. I didn't think Nosepass had what it took to survive another hit, but it does with 4 hit points. If Return crits, I win. But it doesn't. Salamence survives and uses Crunch, knocking me out. It survived my attacks, likely because I didn't have the Silk Scarf. With the extra 10% damage on each hit, I probably would have 2-shot. I'm kicking myself for that one, so let's try this again. Even when the interaction goes my way and the Kingdra uses Dragon Dance on turn 1, if it uses Surf on turn 2, then it breaks my Substitute, and this leaves me on health that's too low to set up Substitute against the Altaria, so then I can't block the Salamence's Intimidate and it knocks me out. I need things to play out in a very specific way. The Kingdra has to not break my Substitute, so that then against the Flygon I take very little damage. Or I just critical hit with Return, which is perfect. Against Altaria, I reset up my Substitute, use Return to knock it out over 2 turns, and then I am hoping for the 2-shot on the Salamence. And even with the Silk Scarf, I am not able to get it. Drake has healing items, and with them he is able to outlast my Nosepass and take another victory. Okay, so the solution here should be obvious to all of you. It's my favorite move. If I make it to the Altaria, then I can use Rest to heal my health. Beyond that, if the Salamence is doing too much damage, I can once again just use Rest. By healing and getting lucky on the Kingdra, I am finally, at long last, able to defeat Drake. Okay, I think there's only one more difficult trainer in this playthrough. Once I defeat Wallace, then I have Harden for Steven, as I've been saying this entire time, and that should be it. It seemed to me at this point like the sub 330 time was still possible. Right before Wallace, I use my final elixir to restore my PP. Now it's time for the champion. Immediately I have a tough call to make. Do I set up Substitute because I know the Whale Lord is going to use Rain Dance, or do I just try to knock it out as quickly as possible? I went for the second of these options. Earthquake does half, Whale Lord sets up Rain Dance, and then I use Return, which has slightly higher base power, but it fails to knock out his lead. Wallace then uses a full restore, which I predict, setting up my own Substitute. But that doesn't really help because then when the Whale Lord attacks, it just breaks my Substitute right away, and I'm still not able to two-shot it. Luckily for me, at low health, Water Spout does very little damage, and Wallace is going to heal again. Or at least I thought he was going to. Instead, Whale Lord uses Blizzard, which is key because he sends in Gyarados next, and I block Intimidate. Return does almost half. The Gyarados is setting up with Dragon Dance, but my second hit does more, so I rolled a better damage range and Gyarados faints. This is perfect. Tentacruel wastes its turn with Toxic, Earthquake one-shots, then Ludicolo comes in. Now remember, I could use Hidden Power for this thing, but I don't even need to. I just hit twice with Return and it faints. Milotic comes in next, and I do more than half. Now, it uses a Citrus Berry to heal its health, and it also breaks my Substitute, so I thought things were going to get a little bit messy here, but instead I critical hit, knocking it out. Nosepass has made it to Wallace's final Pokemon on its first attempt. I think I'm going to do this and move on to Steve, and I can't believe that Drake was the most difficult trainer. The Whiscash is actually a bit sketchy. Return is not able to two-hit, so Wallace is going to be using full restores. Every time he does this, he's going to be able to sneak in one more attack doing a little bit of damage. But I figured this didn't really matter because I can use Rest to heal my health. The problem with that is that then the Whiscash starts spamming Surf, doing a lot of damage to Nosepass, and I felt like I was getting caught in a healing loop with Rest. However, because of the Shell Bell, I realized that I'm going to survive a hit after I recover a little bit of health, and then I'll be able to knock out his final Pokemon. So I go for Return, bring the Whiscash down to red health. I figured from here I can attack one more time, then use Rest if he uses a full restore. But no, the Whiscash gets a critical hit, and Nosepass faints. Okay, so I think I won because I crit the Milotic. What if I don't crit the Milotic? Actually, what if the Whale Lord just freezes me right away with Blizzard? It sets up Rain Dance, hits with Water Spout, which is not nice, and two of these knock Nosepass out. So it's possible to lose to his first Pokemon, but it's also possible to two-shot, so I do have the damage range in me. However, if I don't set up Substitute, then the Gyarados intimidates Nosepass. That's going to be a loss. Fighting the Whale Lord to get a Substitute is fairly straightforward. I want to bring it to red health as soon as possible, hoping that I don't two-shot. It's actually bad if I do, because once it's on low health, I can set up my Substitute and then use Rest to heal my health. Eventually, I'm able to finish off his lead and move on to the Gyarados with decent health. Return does half, but this time the Flying type just goes for Earthquake right away and breaks my Substitute. Then it sets up Dragon Dance and I do knock it out, but the Tentacruel that's next is allowed to poison me with Toxic. That's not good because now Ludicolo is going to be able to set up with Double Team if I choose to use Rest. And it's also pretty good whenever it attacks with Surf. It just doesn't really like to do this right away. Instead, it gets even more annoying setting up Leech Seed. I do take care of it, but I lose to the following Milotic. Reflecting on this battle, I really want an electric type move. If I can one-shot the Gyarados and do more damage to the Whale Lord, then maybe things will be more consistent. After taking more losses, I made the choice to teach Nosepass Thunderbolt in the place of Substitute. I was hoping that I could rely on a special move for the rest of the fight after the Gyarados, but that's not going to work. The Tentacruel is able to poison me, and from there I'm not doing enough damage to the Ludicolo with my physical moves. Maybe teaching Thunderbolt in the place of Rest is going to be the more reliable strategy. I can set up Substitute, bring the Whale Lord down to red health with only one use of Thunderbolt, tank the damage from Water Spout, and then knock it out. Gyarados follows, Thunderbolt one hits after it breaks my Substitute, and then Tentacruel comes in, but I can knock it out with a single hit from Earthquake. Although this did come at a price because the Tentacruel is faster than Nosepass by 4 speed, so it was able to get off Toxic before I took it down. And that plays really well into Ludicolo's strange hands, because this thing is going to set up Double Team and waste my time stacking up Toxic's counters. At least that's what I thought it was going to do, but I just hit the Ludicolo twice and knock it out. The battle does end against the Milotic though, because it just does too much damage with Surf when I don't have a Substitute in place. I thought this strategy was decent, but time after time, Toxic is the reason I'm losing. In the next 2 fights, the Tentacruel isn't the Pokemon that inflicts it, but instead the Milotic. It's less likely for the Tentacruel to poison me just because sometimes I will have my Substitute in place for this fight, or the Tentacruel can just do nothing missing a Hydro Pump. That's also convenient. But once again, after defeating the Ludicolo, solo, which I was scared for, the Milotic is the true threat. It can sometimes survive 2 hits, but other times I have enough damage to finish it. When that happens, I make it to the Whiscash. You'll notice in this battle that I have taught Thunderbolt in the place of Earthquake because I need to be able to use Return against this thing. And I need Rest, otherwise I'm not going to be able to defeat it. You might have already figured that out when I taught Thunderbolt in the place of Rest. Even if I had got lucky in one of those battles and made it to the Whiscash, I still would have lost. The sad thing is that the Whiscash has enough damage to be able to knock out Nosepass even after I use Rest. I have to be able to attack with Return once to gain back some health with the Shell Bell in order to survive. We're just going to quickly jump back in time to the beginning of this last battle. Right here, you can see that my Nosepass is going into the fight at level 85. I have the 2 last rare candies in my bag, so I'm not going to be able to go over a damage rounding threshold, but getting just a little bit more attack and HP might be the thing I need to squeeze by the Whiscash. This is going to leave a lot of experience on the table though, because when you use a rare candy, it just levels you up to the next level. It does not save the experience you had invested towards the previous level. Things are bad here though, I need to do something else. I go up to level 87 and try again, and still no. Wallace crushes me over and over again. While he does this, the clock passes the 3 hour and 30 mark, and if you are wondering why I'm not just blacking out and trying all of this again, the reason's quite simple. I don't have enough PP restoring items to make it back to Wallace. Did any of you ever get into this situation when playing as a kid, where your Pokemon were low leveled and you would need to use PP restoring items to beat the next Elite Four member, but then you'd get stuck against them, black out, and never be able to make it back there? This happened to me like maybe once or twice. Ever since then, I would hoard PP restoring items, never using them during the regular playthrough, and I would typically just black out against the first or second Elite Four member like Lorelei every time I was losing to prevent myself from consuming the PP restoring items, and eventually when I did beat the champion, they would usually all just be sitting in my bag, hoarded there just in case I would run into a challenge like this. The thing is, my stubbornness does eventually pay off because I reinvent my strategy and come up with something that can work. I'm not using the Shell Bell anymore, instead a Pecha Berry to counter out Toxic. This way I have Thunderbolt for the Whale Lord as well as the following Gyarados, and then against the Tentacruel I can use Earthquake for a one-shot. With Substitute in place, Ludicolo's Leech Seed fails and a 2-shot with Return, and then against the Milotic things get very specific. Turn 1, Thunderbolt for less damage. This is key. Then it could break my Substitute or use Toxic. In this case breaking my Substitute, which is not ideal, but it still gives me play, because Return fails to get the 1-hit and it uses Toxic, which my Pecha Berry counters. I know that since it's on red health, Wallace is going to heal it, and from there I can get a 2-hit using Return. I just have to be able to survive one of its attacks and hope that it doesn't go for Toxic again. I hope you all realize this doesn't leave me in a good position against the Whiscash. Okay, pause here, we need to do like a slow zoom on the Whiscash. You're gonna realize this doesn't leave me in a good position against this thing. My health is low, and I'm going to need a crit on one of 2 turns. All of this could have been easier if the Milotic had instead prioritized Toxic when I had my Substitute in place. One free turn against it would have changed the entire outcome of this battle, and it could potentially spam Toxic more than once, which would give me a much better position against the Whiscash. In this case though, I just have to go for Return. It takes the Whiscash down to green health, which is not enough to get the knockout, so my next Return needs to crit. That is the only way that I can win here. And it does! At long last, Nosepass has defeated Wallace, and it is on track for a sub 4-hour finish at Stevenstone. That's not the best thing. Yeah. I try to play my playthroughs in a single sitting, and I did this Nosepass playthrough without breaks. By this point in the run, I was getting truly exhausted. When I sat down and set my expectations for this playthrough, I was thinking that about 3 hours and 30 minutes might be the worst possible time that Nosepass would get, and we are now past that point. I was starting to get a little bit frustrated. I wanted to make sure that Nosepass would have the best possible chance against Stevenstone, so I battle some optional trainers on the SS title. This is just so I get to level 88 before I face him. I also, of course, pick up the Leftovers, one of the best items against the final trainer in the game, and I also go back to the move reminder to teach Rock Slide, just in case it's going to be useful. I don't want to constantly backtrack to Follower Town to use the move reminder, so I'd rather take this with me into the cave, and then I can delete it with TM and HM moves. I also use the move reminder 2 more times, for Harden, which is going to be key to set up against the Skarmory, and for Rest, which will allow me to heal. I think this move is better than Substitute overall when considered against Stevenstone. Substitute has much more utility in the mid-game, so it's time to let it go. Alright, with that, let's head into Meteor Falls and face the final trainer of this playthrough. With Nosepass, I am very confident against Steven Stone. When I originally looked at its move pool, I knew right away that Harden was going to be the answer here. Rock Slide gives me neutral damage against the Skarmory, and then Earthquake is going to be super effective against most of his Pokemon. There are some problems with this strategy. The Claydol resists Rock Slide, and Earthquake can't do any damage to it. But that's a little ways off. Let's focus now on the Skarmory. Steel Wing is doing a lot of damage, but once I get set up, then it starts doing only chip damage per turn. What I'm worried about here are the occasional critical hit, but Nosepass can still survive those and heal with rest. As long as I play conservatively and never let my health fall too low, I will be able to take out the Skarmory. At full setup, Nosepass has 1,117 defense. It is taking so little damage from physical moves now. I spend my time healing so that I don't have Toxic, and then I use Rock Slide to knock out the Skarmory. Okay, time for the Armaldo, which is next. He's sending this in because it has Water Pulse, which is a special move and is also super effective. Still, Nosepass has decent special defense, so it doesn't take very much damage, and I knock out this fossil Pokemon in 2 hits. Alright, he chooses Cradily next, likely because it has Giga Drain. I go for Earthquake, it does more than half with a critical hit, and then Cradily saps some of my health. It looks like I'm gonna have to heal at least once here. Also, my follow-up Earthquake doesn't do very much damage, and Cradily sets up Ingrain, so it's healing a little bit every turn. Here's the thing about Steven's Grass-type fossil. Giga Drain and Ancient Power are its only damage-dealing moves, and both of them have 5 PP each. Confuse Ray has 10 PP, and that means it's really easy to stall this thing out so that it can't attack anymore. And I can waste a lot of time because I have Harden. I spam out all of Harden's PP on the way to getting Cradily to use Struggle. You're probably thinking that I'm just arbitrarily wasting a lot of time here, but I'm not. This is calculated. I think that I'm going to have to use Struggle to beat Steven Stone because the Claydol is not going to take enough damage, and I don't have enough PP left over on Rock Slide to knock it out. Still, I have enough Earthquakes to knock out the Cradily, so it goes down, and then Claydol comes in next. And yes, I was correct here. Rock Slide is not doing enough damage, so I'm going to have to win this battle using Struggle. This isn't the first time I will have beat Pokemon Emerald like this. Cradily did it before. That was the first time, and ever since then, I've always known that it's an option whenever you can outlast Steven's entire team. With the leftovers, after my recoil damage, I return to full health each turn. Claydol just spams a bunch of useless screens as I slowly chip away at it, and Steven gets frustrating by using full restores, healing it, making this battle take even longer. Okay, let's look at the timer. 3 hours, 49 minutes. It looks like Nosepass is about to pull this off under 4 hours. Claydol goes down and Aggron comes out next. Okay, check this out. Struggle is doing very little damage, and then the Aggron absorbs sunlight. It uses Solar Beam and does about a third to my rock type. Okay, I guess I should have anticipated this and known that it would be choosing Solar Beam. Generally, whenever the Aggron uses its Thunder, Solar Beam, or Dragon Claw, all moves which deal special damage, I just kind of laugh. It seems silly that this thing has those moves, but in this case, it's really good, and it ends up finishing Nosepass. Alright, I'm going to go back to the Safari Zone and pick up the last rare candy in the playthrough. This is the only one left. I have a little bit of an input mistake here because I'm getting very exhausted and I run into a Sunkern in the grass, which feels thematically fitting. Nosepass is starting to feel like it's about as good as a Sunkern. Not actually though, Sunkern's going to be much worse. I don't even know if Sunkern is going to be able to beat Pokemon Emerald. Probably not. After grabbing the rare candy, which can only be obtained from the right hand side, I then battle wild Pokemon leveling up to 89 and use the candy to go up over the next damage rounding threshold before facing Steven Stone again. This time against the Skarmory, I lose because of a stray critical hit. I wasn't healing conservatively enough. There is another problem against the Skarmory. Every time it chooses Steel Wing, it has a chance of raising its defense stat, and when it does this, then I can't do enough damage with Rock Slide, and I run out of attacking moves here on the first Pokemon. I think if I don't have any PP left over to knock out the Aggron in a single hit with Earthquake, this is just not going to work. So eventually, after I do try to use Struggle, I make it to the Armaldo, but it finishes me with Water Pulse. Okay, so time to level up more. I am now over 4 hours and 15 minutes of time on the clock when I reach level 92, and this is where I decided to approach this section of the game a little bit differently. I'm going to teach Return in the place of Harden. I can always get it back from the move reminder, and then I grab the Amulet coin. Alright, time to grind against the Elite Four for experience and money. The reason this is really important is because Nosepass is not going to be able to beat the league League again. Instead, it loses to Glacia. But with the amulet coin equipped, I am going to retain some of the money from these battles. One of the reasons I want more money is in case I need to buy another Thunderbolt TM in order to defeat Steven. I was also desperately looking for other options. Maybe Zap Cannon with its chance to paralyze might help me in some niche scenarios. I could potentially rely on Toxic, although it doesn't work on his steel types, but it will work on rock type Pokemon, and it'll also work on the Clay Doll. In the past, I've used it before in my first Jirachi playthrough, which I find really ironic. My Nosepass is also female, so there is some potential for Attract to see some play. I will note that Sandstorm is not going to be useful here. You might think that it boosts special defense, but it doesn't in Generation 3, and the damage it inflicts per turn is only 1/16 of the Pokemon's maximum HP, so this move is really at its worst in this generation. I head back to the game corner, try and buy enough coins to get another Thunderbolt TM, but I still don't have enough. Okay, so let's face the Elite Four again, and this time Sydney's Crawdaunt finishes off Nosepass. This rock type is so bad. It's so bad. I don't know how to express that. Like, the Onix playthrough that I did in Pokemon Crystal last week was painful. I had to do 7 attempts. There were so many problems, so many prominent water types, but Hoenn is just a whole other order of magnitude. As a mono rock type with decent special defense, you would think that Nosepass would feel at least a little bit better than Onix, but it doesn't. Actually, comparing these two is very interesting. I wonder how the rock ground type would do, because if Nosepass is suffering in this way, Onix is just gonna suffer even more. Okay, let's stay focused. That's not what this video is about. This video is about beating the game with Nosepass, and I am still not close to that. I level up to 94. This brings the clock close to 4 hours and 30 minutes. I have also bought myself another Thunderbolt TM, so I'm gonna go back and face Steven Stone after the one Safari Rare Candy at level 95. For this battle, I am running a completely different set: Thunderbolt, Earthquake, Return, and Rest. My goal here is having Thunderbolt for the Skarmory, then I have Return for the Clay Doll, and Earthquake for the other Pokemon. My hope was that my natural defense stat, which I did lower with my nature, I'm kind of regretting that now, I'm hoping this is going to be enough to allow Nosepass to survive all the hits that it needs to. And while I am able to take out the Skarmory and the Armaldo, I get stuck in a healing loop against the Cradily and it finishes me. I tried the fight again. I lose to the Armaldo because of Water Pulse. I lose to the Cradily. This is so bad. I don't know what to say. Nosepass is genuinely awful. Right now, I am regretting my choice of Hidden Power typing. Maybe Hidden Power Fighting would have been a good idea. It doesn't really help against the Clay Doll, but it is decent against Steven's other Pokemon, and at least it has more PP when compared with Rock Slide. I kept trying, and eventually I finish off the Cradily, moving on to the Clay Doll. This is pretty good. Let's see how Return does. Well, it's doing much more damage, provided the Psychic type hadn't set up with Reflect. I have to stall it out so that it runs out of Earthquake PP in order for me to knock it out using Return. This takes a while, and it's pretty sketchy. I run out of Rest PP doing this, and then Steven switches the Clay Doll out, sending Aggron in. I think he's doing this because he sees that I'm using Return on it, which is a normal type move, so honestly, that's a smart play. Luckily for me, I still have Earthquake PP left over, so I can use it for 4 times damage and one-shot the Steel Rock type. Alright, that is perfect. Clay Doll comes back in, and unfortunately, because of its screens and how many PP those moves have, I am not going to be able to knock it out with the remaining PP on my Return. As a result, I am going to have to win this battle with struggle. And yeah, I knock out the Clay Doll, and then Steven Stone sends in Metagross. The unfortunate thing about his ace is that with Meteor Mash, it deals devastating damage to Nosepass, more than half with its first hit. As a result, after an extremely long battle, once again Nosepass loses. Okay everyone, I'm gonna just take a deep breath here. This was so frustrating. I'm gonna go back to the move reminder and teach Harden because apparently I do need it. I put it in the place of Return, which is unfortunate. I now have no moves that can hit the Clay Doll if I choose to have Thunderbolt and Earthquake together. Maybe in the style of Generation 2, Hidden Power Ice might be an alternative here, which would work as a good substitute for Thunderbolt. I don't know, I'm really at a loss here. I'm just not sure what Nosepass needs. I tried the fight over and over and over again using Harden, and I'm just not able to make progress. So if level 95 isn't what I need, with the 5-hour mark approaching, let's go and train and increase Nosepass Pass's level. I can't even rely on a critical hit with the current strategy in order to give me a victory. It just feels hopeless. I do want to mention that I locked in my Safari Rare candy, saving over it at level 95. I thought I was going to be successful, so I have to grind the final 5 levels manually. This takes so long, and I am almost at 5 hours when I finally reach level 99. I went back and tried Steven at this level to see if it was possible. After another extremely long battle, I get stuck with struggle before the Aggron comes in, and once again due to Solar Beam I can't win. So I head back to the Elite Four, do some amulet coin grinding, and I go all the way up to level 100. Okay, here are my solo challenge rules. Only my starter in battle, no items in battle except held items, no glitches or exploits, and I cannot use evasion boosting moves until level 100. For the second time in Pokemon Emerald, we have reached this threshold. I go back to the game corner and feeling extremely defeated, I purchase myself the Double Team TM. Now in a lot of cases, this feels like the move that just solves everything, but for Nosepass, that is not the case. What move am I going to remove from my current set? If I take away Rest, then I can't heal. If I take away Harden, then I don't have good synergy with Rest. If I take away Thunderbolt, then I can't damage the initial Skarmory, so I will have to use Struggle throughout the remainder of the battle. And that leaves only Earthquake, which can't damage Steven's lead Pokemon, so I have to delete the ground type move. I am going to eventually have to use up all of my PP and win the battle using Struggle. In most cases, I will have enough health using the leftovers and Harden's defense boosts to survive all of Steven's hits, but I could potentially lose if he lands a stray critical hit along the way. Okay, so now that we understand how this fight is going to go, let's watch the footage. And while it plays, I'm going to talk about some other alternatives or things that I might want to consider for a follow-up playthrough. First of all, maybe EV training is very important for Nosepass. It might actually save time to just knock out a bunch of Pokemon that give attack EVs early on into the playthrough to ensure that I have enough damage against Steven once I arrive here late into the game. Normally in these solo challenges I don't like to train like that because it wastes so much time. For example, in the early game I could knock out 252 Poochyena to max out my attack EV. But if each of these battles takes roughly 5 seconds or even 10 seconds, that is going to waste way more time than just battling trainers, leveling up, and then defeating the next gym leader. In most cases, the stats that I gain from leveling up is more than enough to complete the playthrough, and if I'm not going to level 100, then maxing out and optimizing my EVs doesn't really matter, other than giving me specific damage ranges if I really need them. But with Nosepass, I do think that this might be something to consider because I am around the 5.5 hour mark now, and anything to make this end before 3 or 3.5 hours would be preferable. I could also consider berries that lower my EVs so that I could invest more in attack at this point in the game, but I don't really want to do that. Taking the time to grow a bunch of these and then reduce my EVs down to 0 is going to take a long time, plus knocking out all the Pokemon will take even more. I think that the double team strategy is just going to get the job done much sooner. Something up until this point that I haven't investigated is the move tutor moves from Pokemon Emerald. So for example, Nosepass can learn Body Slam, Defense Curl, Double Edge, Dynamic Punch, Endure, Explosion, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Mimic, Mud Slap, Rock Slide, Rollout, Sleep Talk, Snore, Substitute, Swagger, Thunder Punch, and Thunder Wave. The elemental punches would be very helpful for Nosepass. For example, Ice Punch for the Claydol would solve so many problems. Also, learning the Rollout and Defense Curl combo together would give Nosepass the damage it needs to sweep through the rest of his Pokemon. The main problem with all these tutors is that they're walled off with BP, so I would somehow need to earn this in the Battle Frontier, and I've never really looked into that because it just doesn't seem time efficient in most playthroughs. But with the Nosepass, it might be an answer, I guess. One thing I'll admit that I completely disregarded was the option of using Rollout against Steven Stone for this final fight. The tutor does not require BP, and he sits just outside of Watson's gym. That said, the Steel type resists the Rock type, so I'm not even sure if this would be doing enough damage to get through the battle. However, I do think that Rollout in combination with Rest, Harden, and Earthquake has more potential than the current set. But while I was playing, I was blind to that. I just didn't see that it was a possibility. Anyways, we have reached +6 defense, +6 evasion, and we are now using Struggle to knock out Steven's Pokemon. I'm pretty lucky because he doesn't get critical hits. My leftovers are healing my health, so my Nosepass is staying at green health, which means even when he does inflict a lot of damage, like when Aggron hits with Solar Beam, I'm still feeling pretty comfortable. Okay, let's move on to the Metagross. This is Steven's final Pokemon. It's trying to use Psychic, which will do a lot of damage if it does end up hitting. It's choosing this over Meteor Mash in this fight, specifically because I set up my defense. In the previous battle, I didn't. My Struggle is doing decent damage, and by the time time I bring the Metagross down to orange health, it finally hits with a Psychic, and this one gets a critical hit. I couldn't believe it. I was so scared as I watched my health deplete, but luckily Nose Pass survives. It brings the Metagross down to red health. Double team, please do your job. It does. Metagross doesn't hit, my next struggle connects, and with that, at long last, Steven Stone is defeated. Nose Pass clocks in with a final first playthrough time of 5 hours, 27 minutes, and 57 seconds. This was with 65 resets, 20 blackouts. I beat the game at level 100 with a game time of 16 hours and 24 minutes. And to pull all of this off, I had to use Double Team. Alright, you're all aware of the title of the video. I have never done this before, because once I start doing second playthroughs in a series, I have never once just decided not to do another run. But Nose Pass was genuinely so frustrating that I just don't have it in me right now to try this thing again. When I played Seal and I was frustrated because it underperformed my expectations, the disappointment there didn't come along with a 5.5 hour playthrough. There wasn't the same level of exhaustion that I experienced. This time I am frustrated, exhausted. That has led to procrastination on this project, and I just can't do another one. I'm not doing it now. I know this might be disappointing, but like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm gonna make a promise to all of you, which is when I do come back to do Nose Pass for a second time, it's gonna be far more interesting than me just doing it all on its own. I'll talk about that in a second. For now, thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon and through YouTube memberships. It really means the world to me. Now, let's rank Nose Pass's first playthrough in my first playthrough tier list. If you're somehow new to the channel and you have made it this far in the video, like, wow, amazing, thanks, maybe consider subscribing. I would like to get to 100,000 if possible. Then when I tell the people in my life that I have a YouTube channel, they'll ask me how many subscribers I have, and I'll be able to give them a 6-digit number, which feels a lot more impressive than having a 5-digit number. Okay, so this is my first playthrough tier list, and a lot of the Pokemon here are not ranked very accurately because my skill as a player has been improving since I played them. A great example of this is Mewtwo, who is currently in the C tier behind Chimecho. My first playthrough with it was very early on into my Emerald series, and I got a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 24 seconds, which is just objectively not very good for Mewtwo. If I switch over to my second attempt tier list, I have since re-ranked Mewtwo, and it now has a time of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 10 seconds. That is almost an hour faster than its first run. So a bunch of the playthroughs in this list will all have to be re-ranked in the future. Like, I'm thinking specifically the starters. Blaziken as a fighting type is an absolute beast and deserves to be in the S tier. Sceptile definitely doesn't deserve to be in the S tier, but it should do better than the E tier at very least. And Swampert should definitely not be relegated to the Surge tier. I messed up that run in more than one way. But even Swampert, when played poorly, with 81 resets, got a time of 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 12 seconds. Yeah, this is nowhere near the time that I just got with Nose Pass. At the bottom of my tier list, you can see that times over 3 hours and 30 minutes are in the Bruno tier, the second to bottom tier. The only Pokemon that are worse than this are the Regis, and they cannot legitimately beat the game. They can't even beat a single trainer in the game. So let's go through the Pokemon in the Bruno tier and see how Nose Pass's results stack up against them. First of all, we have Manectric with a time of 3 hours, 34 minutes, and 54 seconds. Almost a Surge tier result. After that, we have Lovedisk with a 4 hour and 7 minute time. Then we have Delibird, which had to use Double Team with a 4 hour and 42 minute time. And very last, we have Butterfree with a 5 hour and 8 minute time. That said though, Butterfree is going to get a much better result. The only reason it's here is because it was my very first Emerald playthrough on the channel. It has Compound Eyes and Sleep Powder, and when I redo it, I think it's actually going to do decently well. I don't expect great things from it, but it's not going to be a bad Pokemon by any means. So today, Nose Pass, with its terrible time, earns itself the very last spot in the Bruno tier. At least, it wasn't impossible to beat the game with. Okay, so I have played two terrible rock types, Onix and Nose Pass. Onix in Crystal version, Nose Pass in Emerald, and when I come back to do my second playthrough with Nose Pass, it is going to be a versus video. We are going to see which gym leader ace is better. Is it Onix or is it Nose Pass? So that's the promise that I have to all of you. I'm going to make a truly ridiculous versus video when I'm finally ready to revisit this thing. And you know what I am ready for now? Some good rock types. Let's see how Lunatone and Solrock do in the next video. So if you made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you then.